This is the anthem. Here's what you came for. This is the moment magic was made for. Come on, let's light up the sky now. You feel the magic happening right now.
Hello there. Welcome back to Fan Fatales.
Take a ride with us on the Hogwarts Express.
Walk down Main Street with our best super pals.
And defy gravity as we talk about all things fandom.
Hello, and welcome back to Fan Fatales, a member of the Real Fans Podcast Network. I'm Emma.
And I'm Gaby. And happy Women's History Month. You know, we're almost at the end. We have one more, this one, and then one more episode, because it's still technically March when the next one comes out.
Yeah, it's March 29th of 31 days.
Yeah, so still March.
Yes.
So we're going to do one more.
I'm excited for that episode.
Me too. So, but today, we're going to talk about the real-life women who inspired some of the most, like, renowned musicals. Like, these are not just, like, super niche musicals. No, these are, like, ones that are, like, very well-known. Like, they were, a lot of them were featured all over TikTok, especially Six. Six has been featured.
Yeah.
Six is very popular.
All of these have been featured on TikTok. I mean, I think
this is true.
The, da, 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 da.
Yep. The When Is It My Turn? Yeah. So we're going to be talking about Six, Gypsy, and Chicago. Chicago is also a movie, a very famous movie. Catherine Zeta-Jones and Renee Zellweger. So, yeah.
And so I kind of tried to put them in order of, like, historically when they would have, like,
that makes sense.
Happened. So we're going to start with the Queens of Six. And actually, our editor, Kara, just saw the tour a couple weeks ago and sent me part of the playbill. They have a brief history of each of the queens, their interest, and what pop star inspired their songs.
Yes. So
I'm going to add that in a little bit throughout this.
Yeah, we'll sprinkle.
Yeah.
So,
get up.
Would you like to start?
Okay. In the Six playbill, it has in there a little bit of her story, all their birth and death dates. So Catherine of Aragon was born on December 15th of 1485 to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain. So Henry took the throne in 1509 at the age of 17, and 6 weeks later he married Catherine of Aragon, who was the widow of his elder brother, Arthur. Trying to see if it says anything. So she was married to King Arthur November 14th of 1501 at the age of 15 years old.
Wow. And how old was
and he was, it doesn't say in this.
Okay.
But it says that when she married Henry on June 11th of 1509, she was 23 years old.
And he was 17.
Yeah.
Well, that's new. We don't see that happening often.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty neat.
I like that already. Look at her. Girl power already.
Yeah. And her interest, according to this, says that she was interested in religion, sewing, dancing, and a bit more religion.
This is true. I believe this.
And the pop stars that inspired her look and sound in Six are Beyonce and Shakira.
I knew you were going to say Beyonce. That was the first person that comes to mind when you look at her. You think Beyonce.
Yep. But, so from the moment that they got married, Henry was obsessed with continuing the Tudor line. We see this throughout every queen. And she had multiple pregnancies and several births. Most of them were stillbirths, and she had several miscarriages as well. And the only child to survive was Henry and Catherine's daughter, Mary, who was born in February of 1516. February 18th, to be exact.
Oh.
Yeah. That's all the facts that I'm going to say about her on this thing. So Catherine remained at Henry's side for 23 years and is even thought to be the only woman the king ever truly loved, even though some people say it was Jane.
I was just going to say, isn't that Jane Seymour's line, though?
Yes. Henry viewed her as a model wife in every respect, bar one, her failure to give him a son, says Tudor historian Tracy Borman. And because he was frustrated at the lack of a male heir, his eyes wandered. He had a brief extramarital affair with Elizabeth Bessie Blount, who is one of the ladies-in-waiting. Like, the band is all named after different ladies-in-waiting that the queens had. When Catherine of Aragon announces Bessie, it's this Bessie that she's announcing. Which Bessie was one of Catherine's ladies-in-waiting. In 1519, Bessie was taken in secret to the Essex countryside, where she gave birth to Henry Fitzroy, Henry's only acknowledged illegitimate child. So technically he did have a son already. So
what does that mean, acknowledged illegitimate child? What does that mean?
That it wasn't out of wedlock.
Well, no. I know that it was out of wedlock, but, like, what does acknowledged mean?
He had so many
but that's the only one that, like, people are like, yeah, legit.
Yes.
Got it.
Because he even, Mary Boleyn, Anne's sister, he had an affair with her before Anne was even brought into the picture.
Okay.
So who's to say any of Mary's kids were actually Henry's?
Yeah.
That's what I take it to mean, at
Got
least. By the 1520s, Henry had developed a fondness for Miss Anne Boleyn, another lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon, and eventually sought the Pope's approval for an annulment. The historian Borman explains that he argued that his marriage to Catherine was invalid because her marriage to his brother, Arthur, had been consummated, but she always contested this. Which is interesting. Because I think what I read was they were only married, like, a couple months, Arthur and Catherine, before he died of, like, tuberculosis or some other
that's kind of sad.
And then she was, like, forced away into jail only to marry her dead husband's brother.
Wow. Rude.
Yeah. The Pope refused Henry's request, and the king divorced Catherine against the will of the Roman Catholic Church and established the Church of England, ushering in the Reformation period. And Catherine died at Kimbleton Castle as a princess, not a queen, on January 7th of 1536.
So she was still young. Well, I guess this was the time when people died young. This is the time when, like, 25 was middle-aged. So, okay.
Well, 1485 to 1536.
Yeah.
So what? She would have been...
I don't know. That's still not that long.
51.
How old?
51.
Yeah, that's not that old. Like I said, 25 being middle-aged. Yeah.
Yeah. It does say on the little bit of her story that the cause of her death was probably a type of cancer or other illness.
That makes sense.
So, yeah. And of course, Mary, their daughter, became Queen Mary the First, or Bloody Mary, as she's more commonly and colloquially known as.
Yep.
So shall we get into Miss Anne Boleyn?
So our next one is going to be the first of our beheaded group.
Yes. So we don't know her exact birth date, but she was born in 1501, it is estimated.
Interesting. Okay. So, Anne and her sister Mary spent part of their childhood at the court of the Archduchess Margaret, and it was from there that she was transferred to the household of Mary, Henry the, what is that, 8th? Yeah, Henry the 8th's sister. Yep. Who are we talking about? Which one is this? I don't remember. Who was married to King Louis the 6th? That's not 6th.
The 7th.
7th of France. I can't read Roman numerals, if that doesn't tell you anything.
It's totally fine.
I can't read them. Anne's sister Mary was already in the French queen's attendance, so Mary returned to England sometime around 1520 and had a brief affair with Henry. However, when Louis died, Mary Boleyn returned to England with Mary Tudor, while Anne remained in France to attend Claude, the new French queen.
Yes.
So Anne remained in France for the next 6 or 7 years, and because of her position, it's possible that she was at the Field of Cloth of Gold, which was a famous meeting between Henry VIII and the French king Francis I. So then it's believed that that's when Henry became smitten with Anne, but she refused. She was like, no, but she had because she had no interest in being a mistress. But when Henry sought for an annulment from his first wife to marry Anne, right? We talked about this, Rome refused, so king broke away, Roman Catholic Church, Reformation, Church of England, dun, 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 they got married on 1933. No, they got married in...
Specifically on January 25th of 1533.
January 5th of 1533, there you go.
25th
of 1533.
Yes. And it's believed that she was the age of 31. We don't exactly know when she was born, though, so...
Yeah, so, So, Anne gave birth to her first child, Elizabeth, in September of that same year. And Henry was, really hoping he'd get a son. But after a series of stillborn births, again, very common in this time, Henry, he was done. He was like, nope, done. When he took a mistress, she was pissed. She was like, not gonna happen.
I would be too.
I mean, I would be too. Yeah, exactly. Totally, acceptable. But again, at this point in time, this is when having a mistress was nothing. Everybody did,
True.
Especially in a situation where your wife isn't satisfying you or whatever. Women had no rights.
True.
We were property.
Yeah.
So, on one occasion, her sister-in-law, Lady Rochford, was banished from court when she and Anne had plotted to remove an unnamed mistress from the court, says Tudor historian Elizabeth Norton. So despite... so he's, desperate to end this relationship, right? He's like, I want a son. You're not giving me a son. He accused her of adultery, which she was like, bruh, what? And also treason. And so... he had the marriage annulled, and he's the ruler of the Church of England, and it's brand new, so he can be like, I can do whatever I want. Yet Princess Diana and Charles couldn't, but whatever. That's a whole nother thing. But on Monday the 15th, the Queen and her brother were put to trial at the Great Hall in the Tower of London, and it's estimated that some 2,000 people attended and conducted herself in a calm and dignified manner and denied all charges against her.
Yes.
On May 17th, Anne's brother George was executed on Tower Hill, and the other 4 men condemned with the Queen had their sentence commuted from the grisly fate at... What is this sentence?
So there were 4 men that were like, this is who she committed adultery with. So they were also condemned by Tyburn, who was with the trial, but they were only given a simple beheading. It wasn't a elaborate affair as George and Anne's were, because it was the former queen and
got
her brother.
it. So theirs were more low key.
Yeah, theirs were low key. They didn't have an audience.
Got it. So they then came for Anne on the morning of May 19th to take her to the Tower Green, where she was to be afforded the dignity of a private execution. She made a short speech before kneeling on the scaffold. She removed her headdress, and her ladies tied a blindfold over her eyes. The sword itself had been hidden under the straw, and the swordsman cut off her head with one swift stroke. It wasn't even his guillotine at this point? Aw, man.
No. It
was a sword?
They gotten a guy from France, he was the dignified beheading guy, and he was
oh man,
he got the job to cut off the queen.
I have always pictured her like putting her head in the guillotine. Like that's what I always pictured.
Interesting. I think I did.
I always
at
thought it was a
first.
guillotine.
Yeah. So, like, if you watch the other Boleyn, which is about Mary Boleyn, or any of those,
Yes.
it is pictured with a sword.
Okay.
Um,
I never saw
So
those.
I started
though.
picturing it that. Yeah. The other Boleyn is interesting. It's not that historically accurate. Like, it's based in truth, but
Not entirely.
meh.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Scarlett Johansson and Padme.
Oh, Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman play Anne and her sister. Scarlett is
I thought her
Mary.
sister was Elizabeth.
Elizabeth what?
Isn't there another sister, Elizabeth Boleyn?
There's her daughter Elizabeth, who became Queen Elizabeth the First.
The first. I don't know then. I don't know. This one's okay. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, because
Um.
Henry and Anne's daughter became Queen Elizabeth the First, like the real deal monarch of England at this time, after Mary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like
Okay.
who we think of during Shakespeare.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Doesn't matter then. So Anne's body and head were put into an arrow chest and buried in an unmarked grave in the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, which adjoined Tower Green. Her body was one that was identified in renovations of the chapel under the reign of Queen Victoria, so Anne's final resting place is now marked in the marble floor. That's awful.
Yes. From what I read, because they didn't do this with one of the Catherines. I forget which. It was why am I forgetting her name? Catherine Howard. They marked her grave and people kept on digging it up and doing disgusting things to her body. So that's why it was unmarked for a while, because
That's atrocious.
her ladies in waiting didn't want people to do awful things to her.
That's atrocious. I mean,
Yeah.
it bothers me that she's like in the floor.
Yeah.
I'm like, put her in like a graveyard or like in a cemetery somewhere. Don't put her in the freaking
True.
floor.
True.
Or in a catacomb. Like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe she's not actually in the
course-
floor. It just
No.
bothers me.
And her inspiration was Lily Allen and Avril Lavigne, according to the playbill from 6.
Avril Lavigne I get. The other one, not so much.
Okay.
Okay.
Remembered for. So most of these we talked about headlessness, bringing about England's break with the Pope. But the last one threw me off for a loop. So that's why I'm going to say this. Having a 6th fingernail.
What?
That's under the remembered me for Anne Boleyn.
What?
I don't know what this means.
Now I want to Google this. And Boleyn
6th fingernail.
6.
And, I forget. Hever Castle, I believe, is the castle where she grew up with before being moved to France. You can still visit it. It was her childhood castle.
She had 6
And
fingers on
in-
her right hand.
Interesting.
She had a projecting tooth under her upper lip, and on her right hand 6 fingers. There was a large tumor under her chin.
But yeah, so the castle that she grew up in, Hever Castle, which you can still visit in London to this day, and I believe it's one of the castles that, like, they have, like, hotel rooms inside of it. But Hever Castle was gifted to one of Henry's other wives after he executed Anne Boleyn. It was actually given to Anne of Cleves after he divorced her.
Okay.
So,
Moving
the next
on.
queen on our list is Miss Jane Seymour, who it is believed that she was born between 1507 to 1508. And she may have come first come to the court in service of Queen Catherine of Aragon, but then was moved to wait on Anne Boleyn as Anne rose in the king's favor and eventually became his second wife.
What's his deal with like marrying his wife's waiting? Blah, blah, blah. What is his deal with marrying his wife's lady in waiting?
Yeah, that doesn't happen with Anna of Cleves, but it happens again with Catherine Howard and with
Parr.
Parr.
What the hell?
So Anne was the only one that like got out of that. I don't know what his deal with that was. But in September of 1535, the king stayed at the Seymour family home in Wiltshire, England. It may have been there that the king noticed Jane, but it wasn't until February of 1536 that there is evidence of Henry's new love for Jane. By that point, Henry's waning interest in Anne was obvious, and Jane was likely pegged to be her replacement as queen.
Of course, because, what else are ladies in waiting for? Not waiting on the queen at all, apparently.
No. Within 24 hours of Anne Boleyn's execution, Jane Seymour and Henry VIII were formally betrothed.
I hate that.
24 hours. On the 30th of May, they were married at Whitehall Palace, and she would have been like 28 or 29 years old.
This is not even a week after Anne Boleyn died. This is a week after she died. Or was killed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unlike Henry's previous two queens, Jane never had a coronation, and this is believed that the king was waiting to get for Jane to prove herself by giving him a son. So he was like dangling this like carrot in front of her, like, you give me a son, I'll give you a queen.
Yep.
It wasn't until early 1537 that Jane became pregnant. And during her pregnancy, Jane's every whim was indulged by the king, convinced that she, whom he felt to be his first, quote, true wife,
what an asshole,
carried his long-hoped for son.
Oh, man.
On October 12th of 1537, a prince was born at Hampton Court Palace, and he was christened on October 15th. And this baby was named Edward, and Mary, daughter of Catherine of Aragon, was the godmother, and Elizabeth, daughter of Anne Boleyn, also played a role in the christening ceremony.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
Yeah.
They're like half brother.
Yeah.
So is this Edward the first? No.
Edward
Third.
the Sixth.
Sixth. Oh, wait, I'm way off.
Luckily, this tells me.
I love that. He's of that clump of Edwards that are all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because there's like 4 or 5 of them in a row.
Yes. Jane was well enough to receive baby Edward Jane was well enough to receive baby Edward after her son's christening, so mother and father could formally bless the child. She was reported as very ill on October 23rd and died on October 24th, 2 weeks after giving birth.
Aww.
In the end, she would be the only of Henry's 6 wives to be buried with him.
Because she gave him a son.
Yeah.
That is definitely the only one he really loved. It's definitely her.
Yeah.
I don't even think he really loved her. He was just like, yeah! He loved that he gave him a son. That's what he liked. He was all, finally!
Yeah.
And then she died. Does it say what?
It says a hemorrhage.
Oh. Ooh. Oh, so they didn't, so during birth, probably. She started bleeding internally. Okay.
Yeah. And it seems like her 2 brothers fought over the regency of the young Prince Edward after King Henry's death because they tried to get him to be king.
Aww.
And then he died.
Aww.
And then Mary became queen, and then Elizabeth became queen.
Jeesh. And then Elizabeth was queen for a while, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is where we get, like, Elizabethan. This is, like, this is when we get, like, what's it called? Freaking Renaissance.
Yeah, the English Renaissance is because of Henry's second daughter.
Yes. Okay. Now I know where we are time-wise. You know, you could say...
And Jane's... Oh, what?
I was going to say, you know, you say, like, oh, the year. But I'm like, what? What does this mean?
Yes. So his daughter would start the English Renaissance.
Yep. The Middle Ages.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jane Seymour's inspiration were Adele and Sia.
You can absolutely tell Adele by her hair.
Oh, yeah.
Her hair screams Adele.
Yeah. And her song.
Her song for sure. I don't get Sia.
I don't either, unless it's talking about the colors.
Maybe?
The white and the black.
I don't know. I see Adele 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Next we have one of my personal favorites. I love Anne of Cleves.
Yes. So Anne of Cleves is her anglicized name. She was Anna of Cleves originally.
Yes.
Yes, and she was born in 1515.
Yes, and she was German, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
she would have been Lutheran, technically.
Yes.
Because that would have come around the same time. So she's my girl.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. So Henry VIII remained single for over 2 years after the death of Jane Seymour, possibly giving some credence to the thought that he, like, genuinely mourned for her and genuinely cared about her.
Yeah.
So Hans Holbein, who there's a whole freaking song about, was probably the most famous Tudor court painter, and he was sent to the court of the Duke of Cleves, who had 2 sisters, Amelia and Anna. So when Holbein went in 1539, Cleves was seen as an important potential ally in the event that France and the Holy Roman Empire decided to, like, move against the countries that had thrown off the papal authority. So, like, the Pope, right?
Yeah.
Like, and England, you know, they just started this whole brand new church just a few years ago. So they were like, ooh.
And same did Germany.
Same with Germany. And so they were like, let's be allies. And, like, just in case they try to, like, come after us because we were, like, rejecting the Pope, let's do that. So England, you know, sought alliances with countries who had been supporting the Reformation of the church, and several of the duchies and principalities upon the Rhine were Lutheran. So Holbein painted the sisters of the Duke of Cleves, and Henry decided to have a contract drawn up for his marriage to Anne. Although the King of France and the Emperor had gone back to their usual state of animosity, Henry proceeded with the match. The marriage took place on January 6th of 1540, and by then, Henry was already looking for ways to get out. He was all, oh, hell no.
Yeah, and she was 24 when he married her.
And he was, like, old. He's old.
Yes.
Well, old for then. Let's see. How old? He was 17 in 1509. So I guess she was 23, and he's, by 1540, if he was 17, let's just round up. This would make him, like, 57?
Yeah.
Yeah, 58.
Which is about to get really disgusting when we get to Howard.
Yeah. So, but this was normal at the time.
I know.
It sucks, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, still gross. Still very gross. Even if it was back
And
then.
she's the oldest of his wife, or she stayed alive the longest of any of his wives, even Parr.
Yeah. Well, because let's be honest, Anna was on a level of her own.
Yeah.
So she was very ill-suited for life at the English court. Her upbringing in Cleves had concentrated on domestic skills and not the music and literature that was, like, what Henry's court was looking for. And so, most famously, Henry did not find his new bride in the least bit attractive. Like, he didn't think she was pretty at all. He was, like, her song is literally, like, I didn't look like my profile pic. And that is literally what happened. Like, she did not look like her portrait, and he was, like, pissed about it.
Yeah.
So, it said that he called her a Flanders mare.
Yes.
Which is, like, he's equivocating her to a horse.
Yes.
Like, that's awful.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
I have a great story before
Go for it.
we get... This is also in the thing. It says, did you know, when Henry first met Anne of Cleves, he disguised himself, possibly imaging some sort of a romantic reaction. According to a witness, when Henry kissed Anna, she turned away coldly from the hideous stranger molesting her. The witness, Lord Russell, observed that he, quote, never saw His Highness so marvelously astonished.
Wow.
Yeah. You go, Anne.
Yeah. Turn away.
Yeah.
So, in addition to his personal feelings for wanting to end the marriage, there were now, like, political ones, too. Tension between the Duke of Cleves and the Empire were increasing towards war, and Henry had, like, no desire to be involved. But if he were still married to Anne, he would have to be involved. By the Empire, This is the Roman Empire, by the way.
Yes.
But last but not least, like, eventually Henry had become attracted to Catherine Howard. That was, like, part of the whole deal. He was like, okay, well, I'm done with you. Never was really attracted to you in the first place. Your brother's about to go to war. Don't want to be involved. Peace.
Yeah.
So she testified that the match had not been consummated and that her previous engagement to the son of the Duke of Lorraine had not been properly broken. So after the marriage had been dissolved, Anne accepted the honorary title as the king's sister. She was given property, including Hever Castle, like Emma was saying, which was formerly the home of Anne Boleyn. And so she just kind of, like, went away and lived away from court quietly in the countryside until, like, 1557, and, like, went to the coronation of her former stepdaughter, Mary the First.
Yes, and she died on July 16th of 1557, specifically.
She just, like...
And who were her inspirations, do you think, too?
Rihanna.
Yep.
I don't know the other.
Nicki Minaj. Again. Rihanna
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was the whole deal. And every person who has ever played her in the musical ever kills it. Every time I've seen them do it with that costume change, that, like, on stage, like, reveal. 10 out of 10. Yes. Badass. But, like, she just, like, went away and she was like, okay, bye, I'm just gonna go hang out in the countryside and, like, do me. Like, freaking love it. Love it. What a queen. Literally.
Yeah. Okay, I do mention the fun facts I was about to say about Miss Howard before starting in this first two things.
Awesome.
So Catherine of Howard.
Catherine of Howard?
I don't know. Anne of Cleves. Still in
You're
the
fine.
line.
You're fine.
There.
Anna's a queen. We love
Catherine.
Anna.
Yeah. Catherine Howard was the 10th child born to her mother, Joyce Culpeper. And Catherine was believed to have been born between 1518 and 1524 in Lambeth.
So this is, like, the biggest gap we see, like, in not knowing.
Yeah, nothing is known. And let's see, so 1518 to 1524, that would have been in the first, like, 9 years of Catherine of Aragon being queen.
Yeah. Yikes. Also, 10 kids?
Yeah.
10 kids?
Yeah. We also don't know if she was the last, because it doesn't say the 10th and last.
It just says the 10th. Oh, could you imagine?
Yes.
Oh, poor thing.
No. Yeah. Little is known about her childhood, except that it was one of hardship and struggle.
Which we know. Yeah.
And we're about to get to with Mannix and Derham.
Yep.
And all those guys.
Yep.
Despite being the first cousin of Anne Boleyn, Catherine had few prospects for her future as a child. I find it interesting that the two beheaded ones were, like, first cousins.
Right?
Find it very interesting.
I do too.
Her father, Lord Edmund Howard, was a second son and as such was not set to inherit a great fortune, and his peers viewed him as a weak man who was easily bullied by his wife and was often seen begging for money from his more influential family members. With such a large family to support, when Joyce Culpeper died in 1528, Catherine and several of her siblings were sent to live in the care of Edmund's stepmother, the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk. The Duchess was responsible for multiple wards, mostly girls from aristocratic families who had little money or no prospects, and took little to no interest in their actual care. And this is when Catherine is introduced to kind of Mannix and Durham, as we said earlier, and just...
So she's like a teenager. She's like a young teenager.
She married Howard at probably like 17
Howard?
to...
Henry?
17 to 19 years old.
Yeah.
So she's 13 probably at this point.
Yeah.
13, 14.
So, okay, I do want to say, in this next, like, little chunk, we mentioned middle-aged music teacher, and, like, middle-aged, they say middle-aged, but, like, middle-aged is, like, 25.
Yeah.
Still gross. But, like, it's only 25.
But she was 13 still.
Yeah, she was 13, which is still pretty gross. But, like,
yeah.
I think people put, like, oh, middle-aged.
Yeah, it says
they don't want to, like...
in this...
I don't know. I feel like it extra stresses the gross part of it, but it also doesn't mention that, like, people didn't live as long as they live now. They lived to be, like, 50. Maybe, if you were lucky.
True, but it does say that she was no more than 13 at the time at the end of this next thing, too.
I know. But I feel like we have to, like, not that I'm justifying. I'm not justifying it. It's still wrong. 100% still wrong. But
that's what I was saying, but like I wanted to make sure that it was known that she was like
13 for sure.
No more than 13.
That's still pretty gross. Like 25, 13. That's disgusting. Anyway, go ahead.
The first relationship attributed to Catherine was that between her and Henry Mannix, her middle-aged music teacher. They were caught in an embrace by the Dowager Duchess, and Catherine and Mannix both confessed to engaging in a relationship that was sexual, but stressed that they did not sleep together. And she was no more than 13 at the time.
Again, still really messed up.
What? Yeah. The following relationship was between Catherine and Francis Derham, who was the Dowager Duchess's secretary. When interviewed, Derham claimed that they had been pre-contracted to marry, but when the pair were caught in a compromising position, the Duchess had sent him away to work in Ireland. Now, pre-contracts were common in Tudor times, and when consummated, were considered married in the eyes of the church. If Catherine and Derham had, as he claimed, been pre-contracted, then Catherine's marriage to Henry would have been considered illegitimate. And if this were the case, then Henry would have annulled their marriage and banished Catherine instead of having her executed, saving both her and Derham from the executioner.
But it wasn't. It wasn't true, and they did consummate it, or, like, what's the deal? Are we going to get into that, and I'm just asking questions too early?
I don't know if we actually get into it, but, do we? Talk more about it. We talk about it later.
Okay, great.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Despite her family seeming indifference to her, Catherine's uncle, the Duke of Norfolk, found her a place at the Tudor court as one of the ladies-in-waiting to Henry's fourth wife, Anna of Cleves. Within months of her arrival at court, Henry was showering Catherine with gifts, and the favor of the Norfolks began to rise again. While we are uncertain of the exact date of her birth, most historians agree that she was probably around 19 at the time of her marriage to the 49-year-old monarch.
Damn.
Yeah. That is yikes.
Yeah, that's pretty yikes. But, like, at this point, now he's, like, old. Consider, like, in this time.
Again, she was 9 when...
Yeah.
Catherine of Aragon... Or, she was born when Catherine of Aragon was 9 years into her reign as queen.
Yeah. Like, if you lived to be 50, that was a miracle. And, like, the fact that he's 49, and this is only the 5th wife?
5th of 6.
Of 6. There's only one left. And it wasn't for very long, but still.
No. Though Howard was, I believe, the shortest when I looked it up.
I think so.
Like, it was less than a year.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe 10 months entirely.
I believe that. 100%. I believe it.
But stories of Catherine's past sexual encounters during her time with the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk were recounted to the king's advisors, and eyewitness accounts of improper behavior from Catherine's childhood began to surface from various members of the court. And it didn't take long for sexual encounters between the queen and one of the king's friends, Thomas Culpeper, to make their way back to the king, and rumors of infidelity led to a search of Culpeper's chambers, where a letter written in Catherine's handwriting was found expressing her love and affection for him.
Hold up. Hold up.
What?
Isn't her mom's last name Culpeper?
That's yikes.
Real yikes.
Yikes.
Is this some sort of, like, uncle, cousin, relative?
I think so. I don't even want to look that up, though.
I wouldn't.
No. A trial into Catherine was launched, and old relationships were scrutinized. Her previous lovers were questioned and recounted their versions of past events with the young queen. Catherine, who had been 14 at the time of her relationship with Derham, denied any pre-existing contracts between the pair and staunchly claimed throughout her trial that he had raped her. So that is kind of answering that question that you asked earlier.
Yeah. But they didn't believe her clearly.
But if she had said that the contract was true, then she wouldn't have been killed.
Nah.
But again, she was 19 at most when she died, so...
Poor thing.
Yeah. Catherine was stripped of her title on the November 23rd of 1541 and imprisoned. Thomas Culpeper and Francis Derham were hung, drawn, and quartered for high treason on December 10th.
As they should.
And Catherine, however, remained in prison until February as Parliament changed the laws and introduced the Royal Assent by Commission Act 1541.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Making it treason. Yeah.
You're freaking kidding me. This is ridiculous.
A queen consort to fail to disclose her sexual history to her husband or to incite someone to commit adultery with her.
This is ridiculous.
Once the act was passed on February 7th of 1542, Catherine was charged with treason and sentenced to death by beheading 2 days later.
That sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. Hardcore sucks.
Yeah. Interesting. So we don't even know exactly when she dies because of my notes from, I believe it's from history.co.uk is where I got Catherine Howard's information from. They say, February 9th was when she was sentenced to death, or when she was killed. The playbill says February 13th.
Oh, so it's all different. So nobody really knows.
We don't even know when she died.
Ah! That's atrocious.
So rude.
Ugh, I hate that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And who were her two inspirations for the musical?
Ariana Grande.
One.
Pink.
No.
Okay, I don't know the other one.
Britney Spears.
See, here's the thing. I get the first one. The second one I don't get at all. Every single one, I've not gotten the second one. It doesn't make sense to me.
I haven't even heard of one of the two for par, so that's great.
Fun. So, Speaking of Parr, let's just move on down because we're only at 55. We're already at 55 minutes, and we still got 2 to go.
I mean, 10 of that was us trying to figure out why my Wi-Fi was
this
going
is
out,
true.
but
This
still.
is true. But also, you know, we still got a ton to go.
Yeah.
So Catherine Parr was the eldest daughter of Sir Thomas Parr and his wife Maud Green, both of whom were at the court of Henry VIII in his early reign. Maud was a lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon and named her daughter born in 1512 after her. Gross. I mean, that's very sweet. That's very sweet that, like, the lady-in-waiting named her daughter after the queen that she, like, took care of and, like, loved. But, like, ugh.
Let's see again. I want to see when in the... So, she married Henry in 1509.
So she was born...
So this was
3 years.
3 years into Aragon's 23-year reign.
Yucky. So, Thomas Parr died in November of 1517, leaving his 3 children, William, Catherine, and Anne, in the care of their mother. Maud managed to manage the children's education and family estates and must have left an impression on her daughter of the greater role of an independent woman could have in society. Yes, queen.
Yes.
We love a strong single mom.
Yes.
So, Catherine was fluent in French, Latin, and Italian and began learning Spanish while she was queen. Yes. I keep wanting to say queen, but they are all queens. I'm like, yes, queen. Okay.
I know.
Literally.
We can say that starting with the next 3.
I know.
Or the last 3 that we're going to talk about.
I know. But, like, yes, queen. Literally.
Yes.
Catherine Parr's first marriage was to Edward Burrough, the son of Thomas III Baron Burrough of Gainsborough. Oh, jeez. In 1529, when she was 17. And Edward died only a few years later, probably in, like, early 1533. It doesn't say exactly when.
Yes.
So it was during this marriage that Catherine's mother, Maud, died in December of 1531. So she's only 17. She's already, like, a little older than 17. 19. She's 20.
Yeah.
20. She's already 20. Nope, 19.
And
she's lost both of her parents. Very sad.
And can I mention something real quick? It says in the playbill that Parr was friends with Princess Mary, Aragon's daughter.
That's really sweet that they were friends.
Who ended up...
But, like, that's also really gross.
But friends before she became her stepmom. Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. That's so weird.
Yeah.
That's like, oh my gosh, in New Girl, when, like, Jess's high school, like, that friend that they knew in high school marries her dad. That's what that is.
Yeah.
That's weird. Nope, don't like.
I just wanted that to be known.
So Catherine's second marriage, she got married more than once. Love her.
She got married 4 times. She's the most marriages of any queen of England.
Yes. They all die? They all died. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Actually, she died during her last marriage.
She did? Oh, she got married after.
Yeah, because... Yeah.
Okay. I was like, I didn't think
she got married to one of the previous queen's brothers.
Oh, okay, I like that. That's kind of cool. Catherine's second marriage was to John Neville, 3rd Baron Latimer of Snape Castle in Yorkshire, whom she married the summer of 1534 when he was 41 and she was 22. Still yuck, but a little less yuck.
Yeah.
So Latimer had 2 children from his previous marriages, so Catherine became a stepmother for the first time. During the Pilgrimage of Grace, a rebel mob forced Latimer to join them and later took Catherine and her stepchildren hostage at the castle. Latimer was able to eventually secure their freedom and managed to escape arrest for his associations with the rebellion after it was finally put down. Catherine's ailing husband died March of 1543, leaving her a widow for the second time, now at the age of 31. So, it was around this time that Catherine was noticed not only by the king, but also Thomas Seymour, brother of the late Queen Jane Seymour. Okay, I'm seeing what you're saying here. So Catherine and Henry VIII were married on July 12th, in the Queen's Closet at Hampton Court Palace in a small ceremony attended by about 20 people. Catherine was close with all three of her stepchildren as Henry's wife and was personally involved with the education program of the younger two, Elizabeth and Edward. She was also a patron of the arts and music. Yes, we love.
Yes. Yes.
So Catherine's own...
Which, I mean, I feel like, especially with her being so involved with the education of Elizabeth I, you can really see...
So makes sense.
That arts and music really go into her reign. Because when I think of the English Renaissance, I think of Shakespeare and all these other plays and the Renaissance of theater.
Yeah. I mean, also art.
And also art in general, but... Yeah.
Just art, yeah.
I can really see Parr's influence on a young Elizabeth. And she was also very religious and, like, knew all this stuff, which we're about to get into. Catherine's religious.
Absolutely. So Catherine's own learning and academic achievements, as alluded previously, were, like, super impressive. She was very well educated for the time. So... in 1545, her book Prayers or Meditations became the first work published by an English queen under her own name. She also wrote another book, The Lamentation of a Sinner, and it was published after Henry VIII's death. So he died on January of 1547, only a few months after Henry's death. A few months?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So
Henry died in January. She married Thomas in May.
Huh?
She married Thomas in May, according to the playbook.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess you're right. Let's see. Hold on, let me see here. Henry died March 1543. Then they got married on July 12th. That doesn't say what year.
July 12th of 1543.
Oh, wow, that was quick.
So yeah, he died 4 years into their marriage. Henry did.
Wow.
And then she remarried with Thomas Seymour May of 1547.
Oh, this is January. Oh, no, you're right. May. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes. Get it, girl.
Yeah. So what? 5 months after Henry's?
She's all, bye. She's all, I hated that guy. Bye.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So the quickness and secret nature of union caused scandal, blah, blah, blah. She was still able to take guardianship of Princess Elizabeth, and Seymour purchased the wardship of the king's cousin, Lady Jane Grey. That name is super familiar.
So... during this time, because Edward died, so then it was like, who's going to be the ruler of England now? So that became the War of the Roses, which I know very little about. But it was like all these people being like, it was almost like Game of Thrones in real life, where everyone was like, no, I want to be king. I want to be king. I want to be ruler.
That's kind of cool.
That's how it was described to me in my... Shakespeare class last year, how it was kind of like a Game of Thrones kind of situation.
Got it. So it was during this time that the rumors of the relationship between Elizabeth and Seymour arose, and Elizabeth went to another household.
So yes, I know a little bit more about this.
Wait, people thought they were gay?
This is about Thomas Seymour.
What am I thinking? I was like, what? At this time? Yes! Sorry, I got really excited.
He had, thank you. Sorry about that. He had made sexual advances and would try to, like, wake up early and, like, catch her in her PJs and make sexual advances towards her and rape her. And, like, it just was not a great situation for Elizabeth. And many believe that this is why she decided to never marry. Because she's still known as the Virgin Queen, the one who never married.
Oh, that's right.
And many people believe it's because of the trauma that Thomas Seymour had caused.
I mean, makes sense.
At this
time. Being accosted in your own home must be horrifying. Like...
yeah, so she would, like, wake up and like hours before and like get fully dressed and like everything.
Oh, poor thing.
To avoid this from happening
Poor
to her.
thing. Honestly, good for her though. Who? She don't need no man.
No.
No, she don't. And she was like, look at her. Yes, girl. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. But that I wanted to touch a little bit on her. I know that she's not in the music. She's mentioned in the musical, but
yeah, but not like focused upon.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just sad for her. But
yeah. So let's see here. After 3 previous marriages at the age of 36, Catherine was pregnant for the first time. Oh my gosh. And I guess they never lasted long enough to get her pregnant.
No.
They all died too quick. In June of 1548, she moved to Studley Castle in, I know how to say this, Gloucestershire. Like Worcestershire. Gloucestershire. To await the birth of her child. I think that's how you say it.
I think I would butcher it too, so.
I am like 90% sure that's how you say it.
Yeah.
So on August 30th, she gave birth to her daughter, also named Mary.
So Mary ended up dying as an infant. We don't know the cause of her death.
So Catherine soon fell ill with puerperal? I've never heard of this before.
Sure.
It looks like it's purple, but it's not. It could be purple.
Here, let me look at it. Look it up. It's a life-threatening infection of the reproductive organs after childbirth or an abortion.
Aw. Okay. Well, that's what sadly killed her on September 5th in the morning.
Yeah.
Very sad. She was buried with Lady Jane Grey as the chief mourner in the chapel at Studley Castle, where the tomb can still be visited today.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's also known as a postpartum infection.
Okay. So what queens?
That is what it would be known as today.
Makes sense. But legit queens.
Yes.
Love them. They're great.
And since I know you love
I
Gypsy
do.
so much, I can do the 2 women of Chicago, and you could do Miss Gypsy Rose
Deal.
Lee. Okay. So the first one we're going to talk about is Belva Gardner, who was the inspiration for Velma Kelly. She married a bunch too, kind of like Miss Parr over there.
Yeah.
Her first marriage was to a Mr. Overbeck. In 1917, she then remarried to a William Gartner, who was 20 years her elder and a wealthy industrialist in Crown Point, Indiana. 5 months later, William Gartner successfully sued to have the marriage annulled, claiming that Belva's divorce from Overbeck had not been finalized. They then were married a second time, they being William Gartner and Miss Belva Gartner, but had been separated by the time Belva was accused of murder. Like Velma Kelly, Gartner was a performer, specifically a cabaret singer, who used the stage name of Belle Brown. But while the fictional femme fatale slaughtered her sister and cheating husband, her real-life inspiration allegedly shot her married lover.
She's a femme fatale.
Yeah. On March 11th of 1924, Belva Gartner allegedly shot and killed her lover, Walter Law, a married man with 1 child. Law was found sprawled in the front seat of Gartner's car with a bottle of gin and a gun lying beside him. Gartner, found later at her apartment with blood-soaked clothes on the floor, confessed that she was drunk and driving with Law, but couldn't remember what happened. So this is kind of where we get the I can't remember a thing. It wasn't until I was washing the blood off my hands I even knew
they were dead.
dead.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah. Gartner was arrested for the murder of Law in Chicago on March 12th of 1924 and admitted to drinking with Law at various bars and jazz houses, saying she carried a gun for fear of robbers. Miss Gartner was defended by William Scott Stewart, and one of Law's co-workers testified that Law had confided that Gartner was a possessive lover who had threatened him with a knife when he tried to leave her, and Law believed she would kill him one day.
Interesting. So, okay, I feel like this is kind of like, right, she's supposed to have inspired Velma, but I feel like that's also a lot of, like, Roxy's story.
Yes. So, both of their because she was kind of the cabaret kind of singer and, like, all this stuff, but both of their trials was, I forget the name of the reporter, but there was a reporter who ended up writing a play, which is what the musical of Chicago is about the injustices in the Chicago trial system and how they were letting these obvious female murderesses go scot-free because they were saying that they forgot what happened and everything like that.
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with this.
Yes.
I mean,
I spent hours researching these two women.
I love
because
that.
I was so interested.
Truth be told, I think their stories are fabulous, and I love that they get away with it.
Yeah. It's just interesting that, like, because the play was written in, like, 1930s, I believe, 1940s. Like, Miss Gartner was in the audience of the play.
And she was like,
that the musical
damn
Chicago
right I
was
did all
based
that.
on. Yeah.
Love it.
And in some articles I read, she inspired both of them. Some of them she inspired one. Some inspired Velma. But the article I ended up choosing, which was from, Belva Gartner. So it was literally her Wikipedia article. But one of the articles I read had said that she inspired her because she kind of took on Miss Beulah Annan, who was the inspiration of Roxy Hart, under her wing, kind of like Velma tries to do.
Love it.
But Gartner's defense was that Law might have killed himself with the gun.
Oh my gosh, they both reached for the gun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm like putting all the pieces together. I love that song, by the way. That's a great one.
Same. And she acquitted in June of 1924.
Yes, queen.
And following it, she remarried William Gartner.
Oh my god, shut up!
Second time. So she, like, married him, and then they were like, no. And then they remarried, and then she went to jail, and then they remarried again.
And then she divorced him again? No, he filed her for a divorce.
Yeah, he filed her for divorce, claiming that she was abusive and an alcoholic. And on July 5th, Gartner had claimed that she had threatened to murder him after he found her with another man.
What did he expect?
She was eventually convicted. I don't know. She was eventually convicted of drunk driving in November of 1926, and by 1930, she and Gartner had moved to Europe, so he keeps on getting with her.
What is he He's like
the toxic ex-boyfriend, kind of like puppy dog.
Yeah.
Following his death on December 2nd of 1948 in Wilmette, Illinois. When did they move from Europe to Illinois?
Why? That makes no sense. Okay.
No. But she moved to Pasadena, California, and lived with her sister Ethel Crosher.
Sure, I would.
And she died of natural causes on May 14th of 1965 at the age of 80.
What a queen. Ugh.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with her.
We can actually say that about this one. And then Miss Beulah Annan, who was the inspiration for Roxy Hart, and you'll really see why she's the Roxy Hart one in a little bit.
Okay.
But she was born Beulah May Sheriff in Owensboro, Kentucky, and was bored of her life in her small hometown and craved the exciting life in the big city.
Of course, because what 1920s gal didn't?
Exactly. She eloped with a newspaper operator named Perry Stevens and had a child with him.
Oh.
But preferred dancing and drinking to being a wife and mother, and Harry soon threw her out and divorced
So that's
her.
different. Roxy did not have kids.
She soon afterward, Beulah met mechanic Al Annan and moved with him to Chicago, where they were married in 1920. Beulah needed the financial support Al gave her, but was bored with the life of a housewife. While working at a local laundromat, she met the establishment's manager, Harry Calstet, and began an affair with him. And it seemed that she had the best of both worlds, financial security from a devoted husband and the thrill of this affair. But then she started to feel resentful that Harry wasn't spending enough money on her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
On April 3rd of 1924, an argument between the couple turned violent when Harry tried to leave after Beulah told him he wasn't her only love. And Beulah shot him in the back.
They both reached for the gun.
Yeah. After spending a few hours dancing at the murder scene and watching as Harry died, Beulah phoned her husband and told him she had shot a man who had tried to rape her.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Now I get it.
I get it.
It's literally the same story.
Yes. Later she claimed she had gotten in an argument with Harry when she told him she was pregnant and that they both reached for the gun at the same time.
Come on!
But she got it first. Her story would change several times, and her husband Al remained by her side through it all.
It's the same!
Mr. Sullivan, yeah. It's literally the same thing.
The same!
And her story made her a celebrity and the talk of the Chicago press. Again, like Miss Roxy Hart.
This is like hurting my brain.
Authorities were skeptical of Beulah's story of self-defense since Harry had been shot in the back. But all male juries were unwilling to send a pregnant woman to prison. So Beulah Annan was acquitted of the murder of Harry Calstet in May of 1924, and the pregnancy turned out to be a lie. Again, like Roxy. Beulah subsequently left her husband and tried to pursue an entertainment career, but found herself considered a has-been in the press, and they had moved on to the next big thing.
Okay, hold on. Can we go back to the whole pregnancy thing?
Yeah.
Because you stopped reading it because you died for a second. You're like, and I was sitting here and I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, just reading it by myself because it's the same. She says she was pregnant, so she didn't go to prison. They didn't send her to prison and found her not guilty. The pregnancy is a lie.
Yeah. And she leaves her husband in the show and in real life and tried to pursue an entertainment career.
Oh, jeez.
But was considered a has-been by the press, and that they had moved on to the next big thing.
Oh my gosh. This is, wow.
And she had died of tuberculosis at the age of 32.
Ooh, super young.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to know. How can you overlook the fact that this woman is not how can you not see that they're the same?
Yeah.
People who say she's not, you're lying.
Yeah. It's more so the other woman that people
dispute.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like them both. I think they're both badasses. And I think they're both...
I remember the article that I read to really figure out which one was which. It was from sci-fi.com.
Yes.
Hold on. I'm trying to see if I can find the reporter's name. Okay, found it. So Watkins is her last name, So Maureen Dallas Watkins is her name. And Gartner was peddling herself as a victim of the evil jazz scene and was quoted by Miss Watkins as saying, quote, "No woman can love a man enough to kill him. They aren't worth it. Because there are always plenty more. Walter was just a kid, 29, and I'm 38. Why should I have worried whether he loves me or whether he left me? Gin and guns, either one is bad enough, but together they get you in a dickens of a mess, don't they?
What a yes. Oh my god.
Um,
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed.
But Watkins made a name for herself by recounting every detail of both of these stories and cases.
Yeah.
The accused stories, even as they changed, and the way that each woman looked. So she says that Annan was the prettiest woman ever accused of murder in Chicago. Young, slender, with bobbed auburn hair, wide-set appealing blue eyes, up-tilted nose, translucent skin, faintly, very faintly, and refined features, intelligent expression, an awfully nice girl, and more than usually pretty.
I just looked her up, and there's a picture of her that's actually, like, low-key kind of famous.
Really?
At least in my opinion. I've seen it multiple times.
Okay.
Hold on, let me show you. Share screen.
Let me...
Oh, can you turn it on?
Yeah. Just did.
Thank you. This one.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one, too.
Right?
Yeah.
You've seen it? She's, like, sitting... I think this must have been taken in prison or something, because she's in, like, a very, like, nondescript room and wearing, like, a very, like, nondescript outfit.
Yeah.
Like, very plain, but, like, you know.
Kara, can you remind us to put this on the Instagram story?
Yes, please.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll post it on the story so you can see. But, like, this is very familiar. I've seen this photo somewhere.
So, Watkins in 1926 went from a news reporter to Broadway playwright with Brave Little Women, which was a satirical stage play that would be later retitled to Chicago. It was she who transformed Annan, Gartner, their victims, husbands, lawyers, peers, and reporters into characters like Roxy Hart, Velma Kelly, Billy Flynn, Mary Sunshine, and Go to Hell Kitty. She hoped this dark comedy would highlight how appearances and sex appeal had become too important in the justice system. And the show was well received, running on Broadway for 172 performances and spurring a silent movie adaptation directed by filmmaker Cecile B. DeMille. However, the musical we know today only came after Watkins died. She had repeatedly rejected Bob Fosse's pleas to adapt it, but her estate did not, so Fosse's Chicago hit Broadway in 1975, and it went on to become the longest-running musical for on the Great White Way, as well as a 2002 movie that won 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture.
Yes. Also, really quick, who rejects Bob Fosse? I mean, clearly her, but, like, what?
And it doesn't say why.
She just didn't want to.
I feel like it's almost like Saving Mr. Banks.
Yes.
Because she had written, like, she had been in the trial and the courtroom for both of these women and wrote a satirical thing about how they got out of it scot-free. And she probably didn't want Bob Fosse to, like,
muck it up,
victimize them.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I love that story. I think they're fantastic.
Yeah, and I didn't know that they were real people until I saw Chicago on stage at a local theater. Because the director's note was literally just, like, their history.
Love it.
Yeah.
I mean, they do such a good job of, like, changing enough and, like, changing the names. I mean, the names are very stylized, you can tell. Like, those are very, like, theater-y names. They're very theatrical names. So I think they do enough that you would never know unless you looked, you know?
Yeah. Which is kind of why I wanted to highlight them, because obviously we know that 6 is based on 6 Wives of Henry VIII, and that Gypsy is based on Gypsy Rose Lee.
Yeah.
But would you have known?
No.
About these two women?
No. They've changed so much, and, like, they made it so, like, fanciful and extreme in the musical that you would never know.
And I didn't really read much into her, but there was history about, I forget what, it's the Not Guilty, Cell Block Tango girl.
Oh, yes.
But she's also based on a real person. I didn't really read into her history that much. But I mean, even her.
Still, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Obsessed.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. Great job. High five.
Yeah.
So, lastly, we're going to talk about one of my favorite Golden Age shows, Gypsy. Love this show.
Yes.
Love her.
I would love to see it this weekend in Florida, but it's too expensive.
Cry. Oh.
It's $50 for a balcony seat, and that's like the cheapest.
Okay, but I also...
And it's like 2.5 hours away from me.
I also just bought 2 tickets to go see Outsiders, and they were like $300 total. It's a new show. It's going to Broadway like at the end of the year.
Okay. I bought tickets to see a local production of SpongeBob the Musical.
Eee!
It's because Skylar's in it, and I technically helped with costumes. And it was $10 for those tickets.
Yeah, I like those tickets.
It was $10 for a student ticket.
Fun. Love when people give students a discount.
We'll have a fun time tomorrow night.
Fun. So, moving on. Miss Gypsy Rose Lee. So, Rose Louise Havik was born in Seattle, Washington on January 8th of 1911. However, she always told people January 9th was her birthday, which, like, I don't get that, but okay.
Yeah.
She was known as Louise to her family, and her sister, actress June Havik, was born in 1912, and I just looked it up. She did not die until 2010.
Who? Which one? June?
June.
Wow.
She lived nearly 100 years.
Wow.
Right?
You go, girl. When did she die? In 2010.
What? Oh, in 2010.
When did she die?
Hold on 1 second.
Because I'm just curious, like...
Let me see. So she was born November 8th of 1912, and she died March 28th of 2010.
Okay, so she was 97.
Yep. She also, like, after her bout as a child star, went on to be, like, a very famous, like, director and, like...
Yeah.
And stage director and dancer and actress, and, like, she did a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. She was the artistic director of the New Orleans Repertory Theater in 1970.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, her mother, Rose Thompson Havik, forged various birth certificates for each of her daughters, older when needed to evade varying state child labor laws, and younger for reduced fee or train fares. The girls were unsure until, like, way later in their lives what year their actual birth date was.
Wow.
Yeah. So, their mother had married Norwegian-American actor John Olaf Havik, a newspaper advertising salesman, and a reporter at the Seattle Times. They married on May 28th of 1910 in Seattle, and they divorced on August 20th of 1915. Rose Thompson married her second husband, Judson Brennerman, a traveling salesman, on May 28th of 1916 at Unitarian Church in Seattle, with the Reverend J.D.A. Powers officiating. After Havik and Brennerman divorced, June supported the family by appearing in vaudeville, being billed as the, quote, tiniest toe dancer in the world, which is very cute, when she was only 2.5. Let's be honest here. Rose Havik was the original stage mom.
Yes.
The first stage mom. The original one.
Yeah.
So Rose and June went to Hollywood for 2 years, where June appeared in short films directed by Hal Roach. Louise was left behind while June and her mother were on the road. She had an elementary school education, unlike June, who was taught to read by stagehands, which is pretty sad. But, like, knowing that she, like, dedicated the end of her life and, like, the rest of her life to, like, education and, like, educating kids, especially about, like, theater and stuff, like, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Much to her mother's displeasure, June eloped with Bobby Reed, a dancer in their act, who inspired the role of Tulsa.
Yes.
And they left in December of 1928 after a performance in Topeka, Kansas at the Jayhawk Theater, and went on to pursue a brief career in marathon dancing, a more profitable vocation than tap dancing. And that actually they kept in. It is in Topeka, Kansas that they leave. in the show. The theater name is different, but they keep that bit. So
interesting.
Louise's singing and dancing talents were insufficient to sustain the act without June, but eventually it became apparent that Louise could make money in burlesque, which earned her her legendary status as an elegant and witty striptease artist, which I love. So initially her act was propelled forward when a shoulder strap on one of her gowns gave way, causing her dress to fall to her feet, despite her efforts to cover herself. Encouraged by the audience's response, she went on to make the trick the focus of her performance, which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
Her innovations were almost like a casual stripping style compared to the very in-your-face bump and grind styles that most burlesque strippers used. They say she emphasized the tease in strip tease, right? She'd be like, oh, I'm too coy, right? Like she is in the show, right? Or in the movies. There's plenty of movies. So she brought a sharp sense of humor into her act as well, which is also, you can tell in the show, she talks about, being a enthusiast and making fun of the man who's bald, and it's very cute.
Yeah.
So she became famous for her onstage wit as for her stripping style, and changed her stage name to Gypsy Rose Lee. She became one of the biggest stars of Minsky's burlesque, where she performed for 4 years. And she was frequently arrested in the raids on the Minsky Brothers shows. During the Great Depression, Lee spoke at various union meetings in support of New York laborers. According to activist Harry Fisher, her talks were among those that attracted the largest audiences. So she made her money in burlesque, did her deal, lived her best life, and then went on to support laborers. Love it.
Love.
Yeah, philanthropist, 100%.
Queen.
Thank you. In 1937 and 1938, billed as Louise Havoc, she made 5 films in Hollywood, but her acting was generally panned, so she returned to New York City, where she had an affair with the film producer Michael Todd, and co-produced and appeared in his 1942 musical review, Star and Garter. Lee viewed herself as a quote-unquote high-class stripper, and she approved of H.L. Mackins' term, ecdysiast, which he coined as a more dignified way of referring to the profession. Her style of intellectual recitation while stripping was spoofed in the number Zip in Rogers and Harl Pat Joey. And Hearts. Pal Joey. A musical in which June Havoc had appeared on Broadway opposite Gene Kelly. Lee performed an abbreviated version of her act, intellectual recitation and all, in the 1943 film Stage Door Canteen. So I guess we have to go watch it now.
Yeah.
In 1941, Lee authored a mystery thriller called The G-String Murders, which made into sanitized 1943 film Lady of Burlesque, starring Barbara Stanwyck. I'm obsessed. She has this giant collection of things she's done, and it's love it.
It's almost like Parr, I just started collecting things.
Yeah, I mean
we didn't even talk about it, but books that she wrote.
Yeah, Parr collected books, and that's what I was going to say, and husbands.
Yeah, but also in her song, and I forgot to mention this, she fought for women to be educated, and had a woman paint her portrait and all this other stuff.
Yeah, big deal.
Yeah. So
then, Gypsy Rose Lee wrote a second murder mystery book called Mother Finds a Body, and it was published in 1942. And then after the death of their mother, the sisters felt free to write about her without risking a lawsuit. So Gypsy, a memoir, was published in 1957 and served as an inspiration for the Jules Stein, Stephen Sondheim, and Arthur Laurents 1959 musical Gypsy, which is what we're here for.
Yes.
So Havoc did not like the way that she was portrayed in this piece, actually, but she was eventually persuaded not to oppose it for her sister's sake. Which, I feel like her whole life, until she started doing, the burlesque thing, was all for her sister. Literally everything. She got left behind. She didn't get to be involved in anything because of her sister.
So her sister, gave up this thing for her.
Yeah. So, Gypsy, gave up her own,
childhood
almost dignity in this piece for her sister.
So June, Gypsy Rose gave up her childhood for June, and June gave up her dignity. Because that's who Havoc is. Is June Havoc.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say, but
yeah.
So, yes.
I gotcha.
So, the show and the 1962 musical adaptation assured Gypsy a steady income, which, like, yes, good for her. Like,
yes.
Living off those residuals.
Yes.
And then the sisters became, like, estranged for a period of time. Because, like, it makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Louise gave up her dignity for June gave up her dignity for Gypsy, and Gypsy gave up her childhood for Louise. So, like, they had issues.
Yeah.
But they later reconciled. June, in turn, wrote Early Havoc, More Havoc to relate her version of the story, which I think is very cool. So, like, we get two perspectives.
Yeah.
We get Gypsy's perspective of, I gave up my entire life for my sister, and then June's perspective of whatever that may be.
Yeah.
My sister was always jealous that I was more successful, maybe. I don't know what her
I have no idea.
is. We should read it. Book club, we're going to read it.
There we go.
So Gypsy went on to host a daytime San Francisco KGO TV television talk show. Jesus, that was a mouthful, and I did it in one take.
There you go.
Let's go. I'm really hungry, and food's here, so I'm like... the Gypsy Rose Lee Show had 754 episodes and aired from 1965 to 1968. The popular afternoon show featured such guests as Judy Garland, Agnes Moorehead, and Woody Allen, showcasing her love of people, pets, and knitting, among other interests. Oh my god, mood. She also, like, dabbled in sewing and stuff.
Yeah.
So Lee eventually died of lung cancer in Los Angeles in 1970 at the age of 59. Which, I mean, makes sense. They were smoking like chimneys back then.
True.
So, yeah, like, what a queen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Plus Stephen Sondheim wrote Gypsy. You can't go wrong.
True.
Can't go wrong.
And I know we'll talk about this in the Phantom News, but his last ever musical he wrote will soon be on Broadway this year.
I know! Oh my gosh. This is going to be tough. So we have the first Stephen Sondheim musical, and now we have the last.
Yeah.
Wasn't
because he wrote the lyrics for West Side Story. Is that considered his first?
I consider it his first.
Okay. I do too.
Because people say Stephen Sondheim's West Side Story.
Yeah.
Now they say Steven Spielberg's West Side Story, but that's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not wrong because he did direct it, but it feels wrong. Wrong, Steven.
But I really liked this episode and kind of talking more about, like, the women who inspired different musicals. Yeah. And I really would like for us to do this more. I know we talked about it off the air.
Yeah.
But kind of instituting this as part of Women's History Month.
Yeah. I think we'll keep this segment around. We know that the musical theater episodes in general just aren't that popular, but I feel like this is like a
interesting. It's the history. It's not the like talking about shows.
Yeah.
It's the history
the story behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I want to talk about the Romanoff family.
Absolutely.
And Anastasia.
Which is also a movie. It's based off of
Which is also a movie.
Yeah.
The 20th Century Fox, not Disney.
But owned by Disney now. I was trying to remember what studio did it.
That movie is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. Yeah. And just, like, other shows.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Newsies.
The
Newsboy Rebellion.
Especially because, the Newsboy Rebellion. Les Miserables, about the June Rebellion of 18-something.
Yep.
Or another.
Yep.
I don't exactly. Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet.
I mean, we could do Hamilton, but, like, here's the deal with Hamilton. Hamilton tells you the history of Hamilton while you're watching Hamilton. Like, you can't not. Like, you can't not absorb it. It's like, that one doesn't count. Same with 1776.
Yeah. But just, like, other shows, you know, that, like, have this deep history.
Absolutely.
Or deep place in history.
Absolutely. Annie, Get Your Gun.
Hunchback, even. Annie, Get Your Gun. All these shows.
Yeah. This will be exciting. I think this is a good new segment. I'm excited.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
fan news, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're first this week.
Yay, I'm starving. So, a strange loop will open in London this summer.
Universal Parks and Resorts have changed their name to Universal Destinations and Experiences. I'm guessing this is due to the Las Vegas experience opening up
Probably.
for Halloween Horror Nights.
Probably. Disney Cruise Line's new Lighthouse Point welcoming guests beginning summer of 2024.
With the preparations for Epic Universe at Universal Orlando Resort, Universal Destinations and Experiences have released new logos for Epic Universe, Islands of Adventure, Universal Studios Florida, and Universal City Walk.
Sinatra the Musical will premiere this year in the UK. Show written by Joe DiPietro and directed and choreographed by Kathleen Marshall.
Universal Orlando's Cinematic Celebration Nighttime Spectacular has officially ended its run at Universal Studios Florida to make way for new Nighttime Spectacular. Now, this show didn't reopen ever after COVID. They just kind of said, we're done.
Elijah Rhea Johnson will take over the role of Michael Jackson in MJ the Musical.
This fall, Mirabelle from Encanto will greet guests in the Fairy Tale Garden at Magic Kingdom. Now, the Fairy Tale Garden is currently hosting the Merida meet and greet, decorated like the courtyard of her palace, complete with bow and arrow targets. But the Fairy Tale Garden will soon be fully transformed into the casita for the arrival of Mirabelle.
I'm so excited.
Now, this location has been changed a couple times over the years. When Tangled first came out in 2010, I remember it was Tangled inspired, and you can meet Eugene and Rapunzel, Flynn and Rapunzel, whatever you want to call them. And they did the full kingdom dance with you in the courtyard.
That's so cute.
And then it became Merida, and it was supposed to be for a limited time, but then they just never put anyone there.
And now they're going to make it casita, and I'm so excited for that.
Yes.
This spring, treat yourself at Disneyland. Tanya Stone Spa at Disney's Grand Californian Hotel and Spa is introducing blissful new treatments, and Disneyland Resort Hotel guests won't want to miss the new sunrise yoga.
Yes. A new stunning restaurant will open at Disney Springs in late 2023. Summer House on the Lake embodies a breezy beach house vibe featuring 3 expansive outdoor patios with a lake view, which I've been at Disney Springs multiple times this week, and the construction for that is loud as hell.
I don't want to talk. I don't want to do the next one. No. I don't believe it. No. It hurts me too much.
Then you can do the highlighted one.
Okay, fine. It hurts me too much. I can't say it, Emma. I can't.
You know she was in the original, which is why she's coming back.
I don't care. She was in the original?
She was the little girl.
Stop it. No, she was not.
Yes, she was.
I don't like it. Make it go away.
Which is why she's coming back. Okay, I'm just going to say it.
Who's she supposed to be?
I don't know who she's going to be.
Oh, God, I hate it. Go ahead.
Lea Michele joins Ragtime Reunion concert.
I don't like it.
Disney's Animal Kingdom will welcome Moana on April 22nd along the Discovery River.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Jennifer Simard and Adam Godley to join Once Upon a Time on Broadway. Once Upon a One More Time on Broadway. That's the most confusing name ever.
It's the Britney Spears musical.
I know, but I hate the name.
Yeah.
Once Upon a One More Time on Broadway.
Yeah.
Also, the part 1 of the Wicked film shifts release date to Thanksgiving of 2024, a whole year before the film was supposed to be released. Woohoo!
Are you gonna do this?
Oh yeah. I'll do it. So here's the one we were talking about earlier. Stephen Sondheim's final musical will arrive on stage with the title "Here We Are" this September at the Shed in New York City.
Yes, and he wrote "Merrily We Roll Along" as well, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I believe so.
He wrote a lot.
So this is his 3rd musical that will be on Broadway this upcoming season, and it is "Merrily We Roll Along." What?
I said good for him. I mean, he's
Yeah,
passed
because
on
Sweeney
now.
Todd, barely we roll along, and here we are.
Yeah. I mean, he's passed, but still, good for him.
Yeah. But Merrily We Roll Along will begin performances on Broadway in September, with the most recent off-Broadway cast stars coming back, which were Daniel Radcliffe, Lindsay Mendez, and Jonathan Groff.
Yes. Krista Rodriguez, Alicia Umpress, and Richard Klein will star in Cabaret at Barrington Stage.
Disney World raised $1.5 million for Make-A-Wish of Central and Northern Florida through the purchases of the first ever Walt Disney World specialty license plate design honoring the 50th anniversary.
I love that.
And you can still purchase it.
Yes.
So that number is still rising.
I love that. So much. So much.
Yes.
Go buy it. Even if you don't plan on using it in your car.
Exactly.
Alex Moffat, Neil Joshi, and Dana Steingold will join The Cottage on Broadway.
Which Dana Steingold was in Beetlejuice. She was the Girl Scout.
Yeah.
You see, I have to read another one that I don't like.
You don't have to. I'll do it.
No, it's fine.
Emma hates Figment, you guys. It's a Figment one. Yeah.
The Figment meet and greet will be at Imagination Pavilion later this year, and Mickey and Friends will have a new home for greeting guests, because that's currently where they're stationed for their meet and greet, when Communicore Hall opens at Epcot, because all these expansions will be opening by fall.
Yeah. You sounded so pained saying that.
I don't understand.
I know, baby. I know. We all know.
If I was Disney CEO, I'd get rid of Figment.
I think you'd have a riot if you did.
I would make that right Inside Out.
I mean, yes, but I think you'd have a riot if you got rid of Figment.
That's where the Inside Out characters meet, and they're not putting him in where his red cute meet and greets are.
I don't know, dude.
They put joy and sadness.
I don't...
Which is how I feel.
Joy.
Sadness.
Sadness?
No.
Man. Okay, well, getting into some happier Disney news that doesn't, hurt Emma's soul. At South by Southwest, this past week, not this past week.
I believe so.
2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago when this episode's released.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, Josh D'Amaro and Walt Disney Imagineering. Josh D'Amaro is the parks CEO.
He's chairman of Parks and Experiences.
Chairman of Parks and Experiences. So Josh D'Amaro and Walt Disney Imagineering took the stage in a panel titled Creating Happiness, the Art and Science of Disney Parks Storytelling. And they showed prototypes for a few different things, but the two main ones are a new animatronic that incorporates motion capture data to create performances that evoke emotion and dynamic maneuvers. I'm sure you all have by now seen that clip of the bunny doing the front roll on the roller skates.
And it's believed to be a prototype for Judy Hopps.
Yes. Which will be
for Zootopia Land at Shanghai.
Which will be super cool.
Yes. And hopefully Animal Kingdom, because it's a blue sky concept.
There's also a blue sky concept from Disney Imagineers that lets fans have a live conversation with a pixie-sized Tinkerbell. And they had her in a little lantern, in the movie. It was so cool.
So, Blue Sky Concept, for those of you who didn't watch the D23 episode, is if money wasn't an object, stuff that they would add to the park. So this is long from actually becoming a thing in the parks. I know people were complaining about it, but it's still a blue sky concept in years from being
This is still a long ways away from being implemented, but the robots are not.
Yeah. What I could almost see happening, because I believe it's Shanghai, it's one of the Disney parks is adding a Neverland area. I could see a pixie-sized Tinkerbell in the wake queue.
That makes sense.
For that.
That totally makes sense. I could see that.
To kind of start this technology.
Yeah. Or putting it even at Peter Pan in one of the parks.
Yeah.
As part of the queue. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
And that's it for this week's fandom news.
Yeah.
Very lots going on.
Lots. Yep. And like I said, I'm pretty hungry, so let's wrap this baby up.
Yes. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Fan Fatales. We're a proud part of the Real Fans Podcast Network.
That's right, and if you want to check out more shows on the network, you can find them at rf4rm.com.
Next week, we will be talking about the history of the Dahomey warriors and their influences on, and the history of the Dora Milaje in Black Panther, and talking about kind of like where they came from in the comic books as well.
Absolutely. Remember to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
And subscribe to us on YouTube.
Please leave us a review and comment down below to tell us what you thought of the show. And remember to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at FanFataleSPod for the latest updates. Now, Emma, where can the people find you on social media?
So my Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter are all at Snippy Emma, which is SNIPPYEMMA. What about you, Gabs?
I'm at Gabby Gent, pretty much everywhere. That's GABYJENT.
Our editing is by the wonderful Carol Insmeyer.
And as always, thanks for tuning in.
Bye!
The views expressed in this episode do not reflect the brand or company they're about.